please.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of BFUG here in Brussels. Since there are so many of you today in this panel, I would like you to start by introducing yourself, please, and your organization. I will start with you, please.
Hi, my name is Douglas Blackstock and I'm the President of the European Association for Quality Assurance in Higher Education, which is a mouthful, so we just say ENQA. And we are the representative body for quality agencies across the 47 countries of the European higher education area. So we represent our members, we lobby for them on policy terms, we contribute to the development of things like the European standards for quality assurance, and we offer services, training and development to our members. And all of our boards come elected from within a member agency, so my home agency is the QA in the UK.
Hello and good morning, my name is Hannes Raffaseder. I'm the president of EURASHE. EURASHE is the Association of Institutions of Higher Education in Europe. We see ourselves as the voice of, let's say, applied universities. We promote professional higher education, applied research and innovation, and we represent more than 550 higher education institutions around Europe.
Good morning, my name is Iris Kimizoglu. I'm Vice President of the European Students' Union. We represent 20 million students in Europe through our 44 members actually, but from 40 countries. And what we do is to push the student voice and to amplify the student voice on the European level.
Good morning, Gaebel, Director of Higher Education Policy at the European University Association. As the name says, we are representing universities all over Europe, so we are a sister organization of EURASHE, representing the universities in 49 countries across Europe, so all countries of the Bologna Process, and members are universities, but also rectors' associations or universities associations.
Good, so my next question will be to you. Which are the specific areas that your organization is covering within the BFUG?
That's actually quite broad. I mean, as we are all here, we are consultative members, so we have no voting rights in the process, but there's hardly ever voting. It's important to make the voice of the sector heard. And for universities, that means in particular that we are setting or contributing to developing the framework in which universities can exercise their diverse missions of research, innovation and education and contribution to society in general. So this means, in particular in the Bologna Process, the establishment of higher education systems that allow universities to collaborate with each other and also to exchange with each other, so across borders. And it also means advocating, for example, autonomy, because if universities don't have sufficient autonomy, they will not be able to fulfill their missions.
Please, Iris.
Yes, for us, Student Union, traditionally, of course, the social policy is one of our biggest topics that we contribute to. But apart from that, also questions of student-centered learning, student participation within the Bologna Process, but also generally in higher education, and also questions recently more on the fundamental values of higher education, including academic freedom or institutional autonomy, are all topics which we contribute to. And I would say what is also something that we contribute to as one of the few is the question of commodification of higher education, or to take the stance against that actually.
As I said earlier, EURASHE focuses on professional higher education, and we are facing a huge transformation of the world of work. So for us it's important that we also have this kind of transformation of higher education. So we really try to push the innovative approaches to teaching and learning. Iris mentioned student-centered learning, experiential learning, work-based learning, and many other forms. And maybe mention a second thing, of course higher education is not happening in these so-called academic ivory towers. We really focus on the social dimension of higher education, of inclusion. We have to make sure that higher education is not only taking place in some capital regions, let's say. We'll also want to bring higher education to the diverse regions of Europe, and this is what we really promote and push.
I think we contribute to all of the policy discussions, and so for example, this week there's been reports on a working group on learning and teaching. Well, our members do quality assurance of learning and teaching. In fact, the universities do the most of it themselves. That's where quality assurance really sits. But we have in the way colleagues here bring the perspective of universities or professional institutions or students, we bring the expertise of quality assurance agencies into the dialogue. And if you think about it, we have a rich variety of members. Some are the only agency in their country, some are part of a competitive market, some are regional, some are national, some are institutional level, some are program specific. But we review thousands of universities across Europe every year, our members. And so actually what we learn a lot about higher education, and we can analyse and distill that information and contribute current practice, if you like, help with discussions on evolving practice in the Bologna process, because we have a unique insight into what universities are doing from external validation of their activities.
Would you say this evaluation has changed over the years? Because in the talks we had yesterday about monitoring the process, things have changed a lot in the last years.
Yeah, well look, this Bologna process, as the short name for it, the European higher education area, has grown. We were 49, that's 47 at the moment, countries because of the situation in Russia and Ukraine. But that is a growth, and we've had countries that were in the process from the beginning, 25 years ago, and countries that have only come in the last few years. So there's an uneven picture in development. That's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. Everyone's trying to move towards the common goals. But it takes time to change a higher education system. And you have to do it carefully because you don't want to break things, but we want to see progress. We want to see all of the countries meeting their commitments, all of the universities delivering high quality education and good experiences for students. And this process is, I'd say more as an enabling tool, an enabling process rather than a compliance oriented bash countries or universities around the head process. We're actually working together for the collective good of the students of Europe and for society in Europe. That's quite a good thing, I think.
Yeah, definitely. But could you please pass the microphone? Could you please share some examples of your organization, but specific ones that your organization is implementing during the Bologna process?
Well, we have, on the one hand, we try to share or support to share knowledge across all our members in various forms during our annual conferences, in webinars and every other kind of things. I think this is very important, and for my personal opinion, this is one of the most important things of Bologna, that we really now have this kind of co-creation. If we speak about excellence, we speak quite a lot about excellence, but I think there is no absolute excellence. Even the top-ranked universities, they of course have their strength, but also some weaknesses for sure. And it's about sharing experiences and co-create, co-innovate, learn from each and with each other, and this is what we are supporting. And the second thing, of course, we try to be very active in let's say, policy making during, for instance, the working groups of the BFUG, but also in kind of informal settings. And I think this is what we are trying to do at least.
Iris, how would you say that the student life has changed in the past years due to the Bologna process?
I mean, the past few years, I don't know, but if you make the if you look at 20 years ago and now, you
Okay.
see really a big difference. ECTS, the three-cycle system, these are things that didn't exist prior to Bologna. The way I studied compared to my colleagues here is very, very different, and you have more standardization of quality of learning and teaching. You have way more rights also that have been enshrined to some extent because of the things like student-centered learning or now the fundamental values. These are concepts that have always kind of existed, but the way they are now systematically pushed forward, this is something that is also connected to the Bologna process. And of course, we are not at the point where everything is perfect in all the higher education systems. Far from it, actually. But it's a slow but steady process of trying to really bring higher education to the next level.
Mr. Gaebel, what would you say, from your perspective, are the key opportunities for further enhancing the impact of the Bologna process, and how is your organization contributing to this?
That's a good question. I mean, it's very difficult to predict future developments, and we are discussing here this morning the next work program from 2020 to 2027. But I think what is actually a real advantage, I think we all agree the big reforms are gone. Iris mentioned it. The process has really transformed European higher education. The three cycles of bachelor, master, doctorates, that's quite common in all countries now. We have just saw some data on this yesterday, ECTS and we also still see that this is not everywhere well implemented. I mean, if you listen to the discussions about the European University Alliances, it's striking, these are about reforms which we agreed on some 10, 15 years ago, and they are still...
And they never happened.
Well, they may have happened, but probably not to a point where you could just take that as granted and where this would be everywhere accepted in the same way. That said, I think there have been many successes. Douglas talked about quality assurance. I think quality assurance, the way how we have done that in Europe, which is distinct, I think, from other parts of the world, that is a real success. We have a shared understanding of quality assurance in Europe. It's not a standardization, but we share the same principles, but keep then some diversity. And I think that's the way forward. And if we look at what we have achieved in the past, we are looking today at AI, we are looking at climate change, greening, and all these issues. Nobody has the blueprint answer for that. But I mean, the fact that we can gather countries and European organizations here around the table talk about what we see as a development trend, and I think that is enormously helpful. It's like we said already, it's not a top-down process which you would roll out, but we can reflect together and then think what is the next right action.
That was my next question. Looking back at this some 25 years of Bologna process and how things have changed during this time, and since you mentioned all the challenges that we have ahead, which one would you say would be the biggest challenge of all during the Bologna process and all the reforms and everything that you are working on? Whoever wants to start, yeah.
Well, look, as colleagues have said, there's been some really significant developments. Just last month, I spoke at a conference in the United States. So all of the big quality assurance and accreditation university bodies in the US. And all this time on, the United States still doesn't have a qualifications framework. You cannot describe what a degree is or any other level qualification in the US. We've had that for a long, long time now, and has influenced, I think there's now 150 countries now around the world have developed qualifications frameworks. It's not about standardization, but it's about students and employers and society being able to pin a qualification of what level it sits and understand what the value that brings. So we've done a lot of that, but there's been a new challenge emerged, and we talk about it a lot in Europe. is the challenge of academic integrity. In the last 5 or 6 years, there has been a mushrooming of websites where students can pay to get their assignments written for them. We call them essay mills, online cheating, contract cheating. There's now 2,000 of those worldwide operating, and they can operate in any language. That is a big challenge. There's strong evidence that show a sizable proportion of students have used them, sometimes because they've been struggling, they need some help, they don't feel there's enough support for them. Other times it's because they have language problems and the language they've been instructed in, they don't understand very well. But other times it's just cheating. So we have to combat them. But if that was a big issue, that has been turbocharged by the downside of artificial intelligence. So on my phone, I can scan on Samsung now, help me with my homework. You get it through a photograph.
Yeah.
I can get a Microsoft Copilot on my laptop to help me write things. These tools are fantastic, but we need to use them with integrity. And so we need to work with academic staff, with students, and understanding the potential and the benefits of this new opportunity, but deal with all the downsides. So I would say the new and emerging challenge for the Bologna process is integrity of assessment. How we assess students actually know what they're learning.
From my point of view, the biggest change was from a university perspective that Bologna somehow forced us to leave the comfort zones. We have to rethink, we have to redesign our curricula totally, and at least in Austria and probably all around Europe, there are still some grey-haired professors who are complaining about this process, who tell us it was everything better in the past, but I think it's all about the future. We have to take our opportunities, and of course there's plenty of work to do with implementing all these things. But on the other hand, we have the best practices in the alliances, in individual institutions, and wherever we have to learn from them. We have to go further, have to take the next steps.
Iris, you're the biggest challenge that you see coming ahead of us.
Yes, I believe it very much mirrors generally what is happening politically in Europe and also worldwide, and it connects to the question of fundamental values. There's a lot of threat, a lot of attacks against academia, against academics, against academic freedom, institutional autonomy. The question of student and staff participation is even more and more attacked in many countries, with ministries starting to defund student unions, to take away certain rights that we kind of also took for granted in the last 20 years. And I believe we are in times where academia really needs to come together and stand together against these threats that come from the outside, but also within our own community, actually. And this in times where illiberalism is really on the forefront, that will be a huge challenge of the next, probably at least 20 years.
Yeah, thanks. I can't think of one. I think the point that you made is really valid one, you know. I mean, assessment, the whole emergence of AI as an opportunity, but also, of course, as a challenge. I would see that actually also as a positive thing, because it really enhances the pressure to change the way of how we do assessment and getting it really more into learning to the learning outcomes, student-centered learning approach. But I think there are many of these challenges, and if we look 2 years back, we had completely different challenges. You remember that during COVID-19. It's really very difficult to predict. So I think it's really good that we establish this network, this structure where we can communicate among countries. We agreed on common principles, on common tools. We developed a language that we understand. Maybe one challenge that I would see is that this is pretty aloof. So when you go to the universities, and if you speak to university rectors, staff of universities, not everybody is aware of this. Some see this still as the traumatic experience of overnight changes without them being asked, consulted, or involved. I think that's really something to be kept in mind also, as we see that the changes that actually happen in our system, they don't come from ministries, they don't come from rectors. They are environmental, AI, climate change, greening, but they are also pretty bottom up. So the innovation for example, in digital learning, they happen because students and staff at universities, they do something. And I think we have to think of how to better link what we are doing here to what is happening in the institutions. So if that's something that where we could improve it, and get a better, more direct line of how innovation arrives here into the discussions, and we are able to deal with that and react to this, I think that would be very good.
Great, thank you so very much for this talk. It's been really wonderful and really, really useful, and I wish you good luck on your day today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a moment, please. Just a moment, please.